good morning. We're live on the Falcons Podcast on YouTube, but we want to bring in our Facebook families as well. That's Atlanta Falcons on SI and Scott Kennedy Sports. And we'll get going on this Wednesday as a first place in the NFC South team in Atlanta headed to Carolina. Welcome in, everybody. This is the Falcons Podcast. This is our Wednesday edition. We will be taking a look at the Carolina Panthers in the upcoming game. We'll take a look at the Atlanta Falcons in past, present, and future. We're going to take a look around at some of the big news that's happened across the league for sure. Shakeups all over the place. But first off, my name is Scott Kennedy. I'm in Atlanta. I will be your host. My co-host over here is Nick Kendall. He gets up with us, fights the plague that is a first-year-old baby at 5:30 in the morning and manages to make it with us every Monday and Wednesday. 5 months, a newborn, a first-year baby. I think I said that right. So how are you doing, Nick?
I feel like I'm getting towards the final quarter of this cold, so that's a positive. At least it's halfway through the third. But now it's kind of I'm hacking up stuff part of the cold. So we're here. The baby slept through the night last night for the first time in like 5 days, so I actually had like uninterrupted sleep. So that was nice.
I feel amazing.
He's normally a pretty good sleeper now, but this last week for some reason he's been just waking up a bit. But thank God, not yesterday. Saturday and Sunday was a little touch and go because I was on NyQuil and then he'd wake up and it was a undescribable feeling trying to get a baby back to sleep when like everything is trying to force you back to sleep on the NyQuil. But we're here and we got our Lion coffee today, which is helping my throat tremendously, clear everything up. So
that looks
God bless
like
you.
A lot of creamer. Did you put some coffee in your creamer?
I like creamer. I'm a Midwestern man, and it definitely trying to be quick coming down here today. Added a little more than I would normally do, but you know what? We're here.
So we go live every Monday and Wednesday because we like having the conversation with y'all. And I've been watching the numbers. The numbers have been good that we've had. And y'all on Facebook and YouTube are doing an awesome job of hitting that like and share. Please continue that. We've had over 100 likes on YouTube the last couple of weeks. The other day, Nick, we had a 100% out of 155. I think Trevor Simpson must not have been on there because he lives to just hit the complaints afterwards about everything that we said that was wrong. Like, dude, do you even like us?
God bless you, Trevor.
But you know who does like us is Coach. Thank you, Coach, for being here and breaking the ice. First one in and coming in with a super chat. The single best way to support the show, and we certainly appreciate that, Coach. He says, morning, Stubbs. Love y'all. Love you too, brother. Have a good morning. It is Wednesday. Hump day. You've seen that commercial, I would imagine.
Of course. Yeah, classic.
Okay, good. It's probably on YouTube. You're too young to have seen it live, but no, that was
Mike.
That was probably around 2010, 11, right in there.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I was peak of my sports obsession at that point.
Yeah,
Baseball,
you would have been
football.
like, that would have been like etched into your brain then at that age, for goodness sakes.
Freshman year, sophomore year of college, for sure.
Nando's here. Good to see you. He says, Rich Rising, Scott, and Nick, can Coach Morris have this team focused enough for this trap game? And that's what it is. Carolina Panthers, trap game. We should place a 40 burger on the Kitty Cats. Falcons 42, Panthers 19. I tell you what, two of the worst performances. Now, Saints at home last year was one of those. There were 3 in a row last year that got Arthur Smith fired against new quarterbacks, Vikings, Cardinals, and Titans. That just, you're fired. And especially the third one of those was the Cardinals on the road with a bye week. I thought he'd be left in Phoenix. But two of the worst performances I can remember, and one of them was on prime time. I think it was a Thursday night game. That was the Marcus Mariota throw from your back game. I always think in my head of like butt fumble, but that's not what it was. That was one where he rolled out and there's the picture of him laying, it was a still shot and he's flat on his back throwing the ball. That was that Marcus Mariota game. And then last year it was in Carolina, I think it was the 9-7 game. Oh God, that was a travesty. As bad as the Panthers have been, those two teams may have actually been a little bit, especially the 2022 version, may have actually been a little bit better than they are right now, Nick. They've been going backwards.
Yeah, I think that this Panthers team is probably will wind up better than what last season's was, just because the step up in competency of the offensive line. And I think Canales is a solid coach. So I think 2024 will be better than 2023 for the Panthers, but still not good. Their defense doesn't have a lot of good players right now. They lost their best player. Derek Brown has been injured. And I like their offensive line, but they don't have weapons really. It's not a very good team. They'll be picking top 5.
And they just lost an offensive lineman. Their starting center is out for the year with a torn bicep. So he was one of those big money guards that came in. And Austin Corbett, I believe his name is. So I'm not sure what they're going to do to replace him. But typically when you're bad, there's 2 ways to look at it. Typically when you're bad, there's not a lot of drop off from your bad to your worse, but you're not getting any better. That's for sure. And this was a guy who's played a lot of football and been a pretty good player through the years, because he's I think he started every game. He was kind of deemed a bust in Cleveland, goes to LA, and all of a sudden he's really good. Funny how a change of scenery can happen and how that always seems to follow around the same franchises. Oh, he's not any good in Cleveland, boy, but he's really good here. He's not any good in Carolina, Sam Darnold.
Baker Mayfield.
But he's good somewhere else. It's strange how that happens. How the change of scenery and how the culture and everything can really help you for sure. But this is a game the Falcons should win. They've been favored in several of their games this year. This is their biggest spread so far. It's still only like 6. But we'll get into all of that as we say hello. Alan, he's here as well. Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning to you as well. Austin, great to see you. Michael Ronquillo's up with the sunrise. He says, good morning, Nick, Scott and Nick on the Falcons podcast. And real quick before we get too far, I got a lot of friends and family in Central Florida. Y'all be safe.
Yeah.
Y'all be safe out there. Hopefully, if you're on the road, be safe. No accidents, nothing like that. And let's get this thing blown through and out of here and everybody okay. I talked to my in-laws yesterday. They're hunkering down. They're in a high rise on the 11th floor in downtown Orlando is where they live. So they said we should be okay. No flying coconuts at 175 miles an hour at 125 feet in the air. You hope, but it's this one's a little bit scary.
Yeah, it's been. I'm kind of a weather nerd. I've reached that level of adulthood, and just seeing the eye replace itself multiple times and the wind shear. I mean, this is going to be pretty devastating storm. It does sound like it's going to degrade to a category 3 by the time it makes landfall tonight, but it's a slow moving storm, and the surge should be pretty unbelievable. It looks like it's tracking a little south right now, but compared to the more recent models, so maybe the Cape Coral could be the eye rather than Tampa, but we'll see. And I'm thinking of all the people who can't leave. I mean, there's people, you don't have the means, you don't have cars. After Helene, all the car rentals are booked up. There's no gas. People who are working at the hospital are hospitalized that can't leave. I mean, it's unbelievable. So luckily, I mean, thank goodness for Noah and everything, because we see it coming, right? So there is at least some level of preparation, not out of nowhere. But yeah, thinking of everybody who will be impacted. I mean, it's going to be an unbelievably expensive and catastrophic event, and hopefully minimal casualties, because it is unbelievable.
Yep. So be safe out there. John Hassey says, how was the Seven Dust concert? Seven Dust concert was a blast. We're all getting old. That was my main takeaway. Okay. So real quick on this. I have become just the biggest Mark Tremonti fan. And I didn't know, I just kind of discovered Mark Tremonti within the last couple of years, even though I've been listening to him with Creed for, 30 years. I didn't know much about Alter Bridge. I haven't listened to FM radio since like the year 1999 when I first got serious. And I don't know new music. It kind of comes to me very slowly. So Mark Tremonti is awesome, which discovered Alter Bridge, which discovered Miles Kennedy. So make a long story short, lead singer for Seven Dust points to the guy playing the guitar over on the right and says a big thank you to, and I don't even remember his name. He's our manager. He also manages Miles Kennedy. He manages Creed. He was with them this morning. He picked up and was able to fill in for us today on our set. I'm like, this guy manages like most of my favorite bands and musicians, and then he's good enough to just pick up a guitar and play with Seven Dust on the live show. I'm like, I want to be that guy when I grow up, for sure. Nicholas the fifth, Nicholas 5 coming in. V says, good morning, Scott, Nick, and everyone in the chat. Would you trade an offensive lineman for a premium pass rusher if available? Just wanted your take on this.
You don't see player for player trades happen very often at all. And as much as it would be good to get a pass rusher in here. Okay, you said premium pass rusher. Well, what offensive lineman are you trading that is going to get you a premium pass rusher first off? Which premium pass rusher is available? And man, I think that it's just you don't see the player for player trades. But right now, this team, your identity is the offense. Should be Bijan Robinson. Hopefully that opens up a little bit at some point here, as well as, of course, protecting Kirk Cousins. So, I mean, as much as it would be great to have an offensive line, another good, let's not even say premium, let's say borderline Pro Bowl pass rusher on this unit, it would really transform it. I don't think you'd want to be taken away from your strength because right now you are passing offense Kirk Cousins, and you need to protect that at all possible. So maybe like big picture down the line, sure, but in the immediacy, I don't think so. And I don't want to be this guy, Scott, of course, but because long term, if Penix hits, it doesn't matter. It was the right pick, right? But have you seen how good that pass rusher out in LA is doing so far this season? He has been an absolute wrecking ball. The power and the tenacity he plays with is ridiculous, and he has been awesome out there in LA. So is the defensive tackle they traded up for, Braden Fisk from Florida State. But Verse has been the back seven for the Rams, terrible, absolutely freaking terrible. Verse has been unbelievable.
And that was one of the questions that we had. It's like if Penix hits, it's great. But the question will be if Cousins is good, it's good. Right now, the question would be, all right, what could you have done? How far are you going to go where that first round draft pick could have made a difference? We'll never know. And that's okay. Those are water cooler talks. Those are podcast talks where we'll look at it and say, yeah, but they were high on Latu because I don't think they were in on Verse. I don't know that for a fact. So I don't want to hindsight grade that. I don't think we ever really took Verse at number 8. For us, it was like Latu or Dallas Turner was one of the big ones. And Latu's done okay. I haven't heard as much about Dallas Turner, but Vikings are probably the biggest surprise in the league right now. Never a surprise for us, though, is our friends at Lion Coffee. Want to say thank you. Lion Coffee is back with partnering with the Falcons podcast, and we couldn't be happier. Even when they're not our partners, they're our partners. They help fuel the Falcons podcast every morning. And right now, I'm working on, let's see, I'm a whole bean kind of guy, and I'm working on the Cafe Honolulu. The medium dark is probably my favorite. And for you to support us, if you're coffee drinkers out there, and I know a lot of you are, check out in the description where you're seeing this. Make sure it's in Facebook. I know it's on YouTube right now. Falcons 20 is our code at lioncoffee.com. Get 20% off everything. And there's a lot to choose from except 100% Kona and cases. Everything else, 20% off with Falcons 20, Nick.
God, yeah, their stuff is so good. I told Patrick before, I go backpacking. It's like I have my French press, but I'm going to be in the backcountry for, 5-6 days. I don't want to carry the whole French press and then have to deal with all the grounds and stuff too, because weight is at a premium. And he's like, no problem. I got you. Sent me some pour over. And then in his last batch that he sent me some of the instant coffee. So now they're out there with the little, pouches that are absolutely freaking perfect for backpacking, hiking. I'm a sunrise hike guy, Scott. I'll wake up at midnight and drive 4 hours to, climb 5,000 feet and get out there for the sunrise. And hard to beat doing that with Lion Coffee as well. So yeah, Lion Coffee, God bless them. I mean, sponsoring this show, sponsoring my first 9 months of fatherhood. So thank you, Lion Coffee and Patrick.
Yep. So lioncoffee.com. I made a mistake for those of y'all listening. I know we get several hundred listeners after the fact on the audio. It's actually Go Falcons 20. So lionscoffee.com, Go Falcons 20. Check them out. They support us, and trust you'll love it. I would not steer you wrong. I'm not messing with my morning coffee. That's for sure. On that note, let's get back to the chat. And Rob, you're gonna have to help me out here, or somebody can help me out. He says, any truth behind the Reddick posts? I don't know what that's about off the top of my head. So I won't say no, but I don't have a whole lot of information on that. I can't think of a Reddick that is relevant to the Falcons off the top of my head.
All I can see here, just in the last 24 hours, obviously Salah is gone. We can talk about that. I don't think what's going on there is his fault, but he'll be fine. I mean, fired head coach is one of the best spots to be in North America. But yeah, Reddick hasn't reported yet, but the report
That's right,
is
Hassan Reddick. Thank you.
Hassan Reddick hasn't reported yet, but Jets owner Woody Johnson offers to roll out red carpet for edge rusher. So I don't know what that means. I mean, he doesn't want a red carpet, Woody. He wants a new contract. But we'll see what happens there. I mean, Reddick would be good to get for this team if he's available. We'll see. I mean, we're monitoring. I think the dream, if I was the Falcons, would be if Cincinnati loses one more game, Trey Hendrickson would be phenomenal on that team. But we'll see. I mean, who are the lowly teams right now that might have somebody available here soon? You got New England. They already traded you Judon. Cincinnati, Cleveland. I think they just paid because obviously you're not getting Myles Garrett from him, but they're the other edge rushers. Zadarius Smith, I think he just got a new contract. Rams are young there. Jacksonville just paid Josh Allen. Carolina traded away Brian Burns. Maybe somebody in Tennessee, Harold Landry. Miami paid Chubb, and Phillips is hurt. You just talked about the Jets, maybe the Cardinals. I mean, God, here's the real dark horse, Scott. You want to talk about like a long-term superstar piece? There's some disgruntled, upset people out in the Raiders organization. What would it take to get Max Crosby out there? I mean, you're talking 2 first-round picks, but I mean, not a great draft coming up here. You're not going to probably get better than Max Crosby with either of those first-round picks.
Max Crosby on the Atlanta Falcons defense turns them into, dare I say, NFC favorites.
I mean, they'd be up in the conversation.
Yeah. It's not. It wouldn't be crazy to say, like, I guess it would be in the conversation for sure. If Max Crosby, now this is a pipe dream, but again,
absolutely.
Why not? They're in complete turmoil out there, and Max Crosby's been nothing but a professional in LA or with the Raiders, with Vegas, with LV. Max Crosby on the Atlanta Falcons, and they're absolutely in the conversation of, okay, who are the favorites in the NFC? Well, the schedule's not as easy as people said it was going to be, that's for sure.
No.
Because the NFC South is pretty good. I think I saw yesterday the Falcons have had the 6th toughest schedule through the first 5 weeks, and they're 3-2. That bodes well. But yeah, I mean, as long as we're dreaming.
And his contract is really tradable. I just looked at it. They would save $25 million with $5 million dead this year and $10 million dead next year. And I mean, for 2 first-round picks for a team that is going nowhere fast.
28, 29 years old?
I believe he's probably about that age. Let me see. 27.
I might throw in 2 first-rounders and then some.
Yeah.
2 first-rounders and then a kicker. A little sweetener on the back end of this. Yeah, that would be fun.
That's the pipe dream. Yeah, they're terrible right now. So we'll see what happens. Maybe you take a cast-off first-round pick from a Colts team that's struggling too, and like Kwity Paye, just to see if you can revitalize anything there. It wouldn't cost a lot. He's just been okay. But those are the teams that stand out right now. We'll see what happens. But yeah, just thinking about the Raiders falling apart. I mean, Crosby would be unbelievable.
And Craig, I want to hit on this because this is one of those things that this isn't you. This is a lot of things, but people like to point to an outlier and say, well, this is how they did it, so this is how we should do it. And Craig comes in, he says, I wonder what the success rate is of rookie QBs that sit for a year or two behind a vet versus a quarterback that starts right away, a rookie that starts right away. It seems rookie QBs that start right away have not fared well. Okay, most of the time, rookie quarterbacks that come in and start right away are on garbage teams. And one of the reasons you don't want them to play is because you're afraid of getting them killed. See New England Patriots. Okay? So Drake May, it's like, why wouldn't you want Drake May getting some experience in playing? Because I'm afraid he would be shellacked and shell-shocked, and you would break him. Better to spend $10 million and break Jacoby Brissett and let him ride off into the sunset instead of ruining a new asset. And here's the thing, Craig. Most rookie QBs who sit for the first or second year don't ever end up starting quarterbacks in this league. So if I take 10 guys that I draft and 10 of them sit for a year, you might get one bona fide starter out of that bunch down the league and be like, oh, well, he sat, so it must work. But what about the other 9 guys? The other 9 guys that weren't good enough to do this. Now, that said, if I had the opportunity to take a quarterback and sit him behind Matt Ryan for a year or two and have that opportunity because I have the luxury of a decent quarterback and a team that I think is competitive, I think that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing for him. So I think Penix is in a good situation, but I'm not going to automatically say it's better for them to sit a year because playing is the only way you're going to get better out here. Now, you just have to be in the right situation. I don't want my rookie quarterback, who's the number 1 overall pick in the draft, getting picked and then having to play right away for a team that was bad enough to have the number 1 pick in the draft. And the team around him didn't get any better because I used my number 1 pick on a quarterback.
Yeah. I mean, chicken or the egg, right? A lot of times you don't have a situation where teams are in a position to draft a guy when they already are so competent at quarterback because of how short the cycles are, right? Like what the Packers did twice, very much an anomaly. A lot of times you don't have that built-in, what's the word I'm looking for? Just, insurance or a luxury to taking a first-round pick when you are in a window, it's so hard to go for it in the league. So I don't know. You see it sometimes, but just with how like the pressure of winning immediately, needing to take advantage of that rookie quarterback contract as well, you just don't see it happen very often. So we'll see. I mean, gosh, they liked Penix enough, and I'm all for the process with how valuable quarterback is. If you have a chance at a guy that you have evaluated as special, you take him. I mean, it's just, I don't think you overthink it, even if it is somewhat of a luxury because you already are set there. If you think they are special, it's hard enough to find that guy. And just the like, it's like the payoff is so much higher too. Like if you take an edge rusher there and he's Jared Verse, and let's say he's a multiple time Pro Bowler. I mean, compared the cash that he's going to get compared to a top 15, top 10 quarterback, the quarterback's payoff is much higher.
It's double for the quarterback.
So, I mean, at some point you do have to take the shot, and they weren't expecting to be this high again. And they fell in love with Penix in the process. So we'll see. I mean, it's going to be 3-4 years before we have a really good idea of what the data says. Maybe. And it probably 3, 4, 5, excuse me, before we have an idea of if it was a good pick or not, but we'll see. I mean, gotta love the arm talent. And I think he's going to be a lot of fun, regardless of whatever happened. I mean, he's having a guy with that much arm talent is going to be a lot of fun, no doubt.
No, and I've said all along that I think this was a playoff roster with a rookie quarterback. I think Michael Penix was such a significant upgrade over Taylor Heineke and I had Marcus in my head, Desmond Ridder. That's not a hot take. No. That this was a playoff roster with him, and he was in a good situation. The Falcons, it wasn't quite this extreme, but the San Antonio Spurs going from winning championships to an injury and then end up with the number 1 pick in the draft, and you get Tim Duncan and put him next to David Robinson. Okay. Well, the Spurs weren't exactly the worst team in the league. Yeah. The Falcons weren't one of the 10 worst rosters in the league. Penix playing now, I think, would be in a much, much better situation than Drake May playing right now. Who else is in there? I think he'd be in a better situation than I think he'd be in the best situation of any of the rookie quarterbacks, honestly, based on the talents around them and the weaponry.
I mean, you might argue that if McCarthy didn't get hurt, what Kevin O'Connell is doing with Jefferson Addison and how they're playing, maybe that's slightly better infrastructure. But that has a lot to do with Kevin O'Connell's probably the singular best play caller in the NFL right now. I don't know if it was you or not, Nick, but I said the other day, it's like, okay, we're drafting. Who's your number 1 pick in the draft? Kevin O'Connell. Yeah, I mean, he's unbelievable. Also, Justin Jefferson is absolutely unbelievable too. So probably I would argue the Vikings, but that's with hindsight. Chris Walker comes in and says, good morning, Scott and Nick, along with everyone watching. Are we realistically going to be able to re-sign Tyler Algier? You have 1.5, 1 3/4 of contractual control left with Tyler Algier. He will be a free agent after 2025 because this is his year 3 in the league. So there's so much football left to be played. Things can change dramatically. I mean, knock on wood, but there could be an injury in the room. You might not be paying a quarterback at the point where Tyler Algier becomes available. So I would say odds are not fantastic that you would sign Tyler Algier, but there is so much to happen and change that we just don't know what the circumstances will be come March of 2026. So, I mean, realistic, who knows what's realistic at that point? There's just so much yet to happen.
Yeah, and the thing is an expensive running back in the grand scheme of things really isn't that expensive. But do you want $20 million in your running back room? And that's what it boils down to, because that's about where Bijan will be on his rookie contract because he was drafted so high. We said one of the problems with taking a tight end or a running back that early is you automatically lose the salary cap benefits of a rookie contract because the running backs just aren't that expensive, but a top 10 pick is as expensive as a good running back, unless it's Christian McCaffrey who's getting 20. But that, again, I'm not going to try and bet on the outlier. That's how you end up losing. I like to go for what we normally see here. And yes, will they? Tyler Algier, I would think when in 2 years, maybe in 3 years, we're 3 years down the road, they're not both going to be on the team. They're not going to both be on the team. You're going to choose one or the other, and we'll see how that shakes out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, long way to go on that one, and just be happy that you have 2 right now. And Algier has been an awesome pick. I mean, I am very envious of Algier watching him play. He's just an energy bringer. So we got Patrick coming in here. Aloha, gents. Cheers there we go. I spilled a little bit. That's too bad.
He says Mr. Lion Coffee himself. Yeah, Patrick's the one who got this kind of started. He came into one of the chats. He's like, anybody want some coffee? I'm like, you know what? We run a morning show that coffee might work perfect with. And hell, that was 2 years ago, and Patrick has kept us well caffeinated since then. So we certainly appreciate it. Chris comes in, and he says, most of the quarterbacks drafted by the Falcons that I can think of have been pretty good ones. Barkowski, Miller, Favre, Matt Ryan. Obviously, Ritter was pretty bad, but it's early to say on Penix. Throw in Matt Schaub. Matt Schaub was I don't think he was a third or later. I think he was first or second, but Ritter was a third-round pick. Again, what am I hoping to get out of a third-rounder? What am I expecting to get out of a third-rounder? A quality backup. That's what I'm kind of hoping for. Anything more than that? Well, Scott, what about? I know, play whataboutism all you want to, okay? One out of I think someone said something like, Scott, you should know better. And I'm like, yeah, I do. There's been one quarterback drafted in the 3rd round in the last 20 years that has been worth a damn. It was something crazy that I looked up. So, yeah, you're expecting to see that. So not Ritter, but Matt Schaub was pretty good. Through the years, as bad as the Falcons have been, they've had decent quarterback play. Even some of the guys that they acquired later, even when they got Jeff George. Jeff George was decent in Atlanta, and it was a hell of a lot cheaper, and they ended up getting a haul. I think the Jeff George trade to the Colts is who got them Chris Hinton and Andre Rison. That was a huge trade for them because Chris Hinton was awesome, and Andre Rison was awesome here in Atlanta. You mentioned Chris Miller. Chris Miller was a good quarterback on a bad team. Steve Barkowski was a good quarterback on a bad team.
That Michael Vick guy was pretty fun.
Was a good quarterback.
Michael Vick was fun.
Michael Vick was good. Yeah, mentioned. Yeah, how did we miss him? Michael Vick was in there.
Try Boogie coming in and say, how you not say Mike Vick? Yeah, of course.
Yeah, how do we not say Mike Vick? Yeah, Mike Vick was in there. Was also really good. So quarterback play, I mentioned kickers last week. Kickers and running backs, the Falcons. That's what has been so bad about the last few years. It's they haven't been able to run the ball. Dude, in the 80s, when I grew up, man, the Falcons were awful. 7-9 was considered a good year. They had one winning season in the 80s, and it was 1980. They didn't have another winning season until 1991. And they had the running backs, man. They had the running backs. Gerald Riggs and William Andrews were beasts. They were beasts. And it was fun. So yeah, for the most part, the Atlanta Falcons have had good quarterback play through their history, relatively speaking. Bobby Hebert came here and he had some good years. It was It could have been worse. Eric Mack coming in. Good to see you, Eric. He says we really need to look for linebackers. Really need to get them healthy. And I think you get 2 of them back this week. 10 days off. We mentioned a trap game with the Carolina Panthers. Having that mini bye week to flush your system and put all of that behind you, that game behind you now, and focus was good for this team. A short week would not have been a good time to go to Carolina. That long week, Landman is off IR. They've opened up the practice window on him, so he's not technically off IR. They've opened up the practice window on him. He's eligible to come off. And I think we see Troy Anderson back. I think he would have played Sunday if he had an extra 3 days of rest. Now with another 7 days of rest, I think Troy Anderson comes back. Caden Ellis, Nate Landman, Troy Anderson. That's 3 pretty good linebackers, man.
Yeah. I think right now the linebackers, unless he's talking about edges too, but with what you're dealing with Anderson, I think you just kind of have to ride the wave this season with him, and hopefully he starts to figure it out with the processing and run fits because the athleticism and playmaking that he has is something that you definitely want and need. And maybe you can even do something where, obvious base down stuff, you bring in Landman because he's not really dynamic sideline to sideline or in coverage, but in run fits, tackling, he's pretty good there. And then Ellis as well as a hybrid piece. So I think actually the linebacker room, a lot depends on staying healthy, of course, and Anderson's development. But he's toolsy, rangy enough that I think you kind of let him play right now. And with the safeties behind him, maybe you give him a little bit of leeway there. For me, looking at the Falcons roster, it's easy. You can never add enough offensive line. We'll see what happens with McGarry going forward. So offensive tackle stands out to me. Mooney's answered enough at wide receiver too. Now, granted, wide receiver is a position where if you can get difference makers, I think you take them, especially with a guy like Kirk Cousins. But it's the top 2 are edge and cornerback. So I think that's where you're looking. Doesn't look like it's going to be a phenomenal draft class coming up here, but there are, mid-first round, day 2 edge rushers and cornerbacks that are going to be available. It's a much better defensive class than it is offensive this season, other than running back. The running back class looks unbelievable and pretty good tight end class too. But we like Clark Phillips. I think he's a fine guy out there, but he's not like super duper dynamic where like he has a gravity to him, right? He's a guy that you're happy out there on a rookie contract, but I don't think he's making play after play or sticky enough in coverage with all these tools that it's like, okay, we're not at least considering competition / replacement for you. It's that kind of guy. And definitely edges.
Definitely cornerback is still a need. Safety is still a need, frankly. For the future. Justin Simmons is on a 1-year contract. We'll see if he wants to come back or if they want him back after a year. I get the sun is just hitting that crease. So apologies for that. Let's see if I come over here. Thomas comes in. He says, good morning. Are we deep enough at safety that we could use Grant in a hybrid role? Not the best in coverage, but a thumper that could help until our linebackers get healthy. Thomas, I think that ship has sailed, honestly. I expected to see that against the Buccaneers. That's what I expected to see. Was more 3 safety looks, more Richie Grant out there. And then when D. Alford goes down, instead of more 3 safety looks, again, to help out with the size and stuff, we saw Antonio Hamilton. Richie Grant, they talked him up. He had some roles, but the more he plays, the less he plays, if you know what I mean. The more we see of him, the more anybody sees of him play, his numbers go down in snap counts as the season goes on. And if there was ever a time where we should have seen Richie Grant, if Richie Grant was going to be the guy, was against Tampa. Nick, I'm going to close the story real quick. Take that for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think you're looking at safety. You could see Grant in a hybrid role. The issue with Grant is that he's been a little bit up and down in his tackling consistency. And, this last week you had the injury happen at the slot. It'd be easy to try to get, an extra safety out there if you want. You have injury at slot, your nickel, and linebacker, and Grant really didn't see a huge uptick. Now, granted, maybe that changes. Maybe it's something they can install a little bit better, especially now that you played a Thursday game. This Carolina game will probably be telling if Grant doesn't see an uptick in snaps. I think that you're probably more so just backup guy, special teams, so you're happy to have on a rookie contract, but didn't live up to it. But a lot of times, a lot of people love the linebacker in theory, but when you are struggling to, sorry, Scott, when you're struggling to stop the run as much as Carolina or as the Falcons are right now on paper, a lot of that's scrambling. But when you're struggling to stop the run, you're not typically taking off defensive linemen and linebackers for more defensive backs. So just don't see it other than maybe some niche plays out there. And with how they're utilizing them, I think more Grant snaps is probably a bad thing because it probably means that your top two guys suffered some sort of setback or missing time.
Maybe he was banged up. I don't know, but I don't think he took a defensive snap. And I expect the three defensive backs to be, especially if all the four defensive backs to be Phillips, Alford, Hughes, Terrell, as far as the corners go. And when if they're playing in a nickel, then I don't know that I need to see Hamilton on the field because I should then go Phillips, Hughes, Terrell, Simmons, Bates, and see how it goes there. So Thomas, I think his days, I'm surprised he's on the team anyway, because you could have saved a bunch of money and he's in the last year of a contract and it was non-guaranteed because it was the last year of a second-year deal and not a first-year deal. They talked him up. He saw some time. Now we're not seeing him anymore. I think we've just about seen the end of Richie Grant as a member of the Atlanta Falcons defense. Now he can still do some special team stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look like he played a defensive snap out there. You had Mike Hughes in defensive backfield. D. Alford play some. Kevin King had a snap. Justin Simmons, of course. Jesse Bates and Clark Phillips. Those are your guys who and AJ Terrell. So, yeah, no defensive snaps for Grant. Just doesn't seem like they're going to be trying to utilize dime looks or third safety. But it's a long season. Things can change. And maybe that has to do more with Tampa, although Tampa's such a spread out team, not a good run team that you think, again, like if there's any time it's going to happen, it would have been then. So I don't know. We'll see.
Should I ask, do you think DeMarco Hellum could play that third safety for us? Could he be a third safety? Yes. But frankly, I don't want to see three safeties on the field. If you have three safeties on the field, it means you don't have enough cornerbacks. You're bringing those guys in for coverage. If I need another safety for run support, bring me another linebacker. Let's go a nickel. Instead of a third safety, let me go with a nickel. And then I've got 5 defensive backs. If I need a dime and I need a dime package out there, I want more coverage guys out there. If I have to play a third safety, it means I'm either short at linebacker or short at cornerback.
Or you have a special player out there. I mean, you could have your Kyle Hamilton types. There are some guys who are that hybrid player, but they are.
But he's the first safety.
Yeah. Yeah, but he comes down and he plays in the box with 2 safeties behind him. So I just don't think Grant or Hellums are dynamic enough to be that guy. But I mean, injuries happen. Safety's a core special team spot as well. So you're happy to have guys that you can trust in that second string there in that room.
Moss, this Carolina game feels like a trap game. What do you think? I think my history of watching the Atlanta Falcons always makes it feel like, that Lucy's about to pull the football out from you. And this is a game the Atlanta Falcons should win by 2 touchdowns. And I'm going to say they're going to win by 2 touchdowns. My score on this, Nick, is 27-10. This is a game they should win by 2 touchdowns. It's a division game, and weird things kind of happen when they play the Panthers. But this Panthers team looks like they want to be somewhere else. We don't want to play for this SOB anymore. Go to falconsi.com. Atlanta. It's the Atlanta Falcons site on SI. Terrence Biggs just wrote up a column just kind of highlighting the difference. The difference starts at the top. David Tepper versus Arthur Blank. And Nick, real quick, we'll get passionate about draft and picks. Oh, I would have done this, and maybe I was right, maybe I was wrong. We'll see. Over the course of the last couple of seasons, if you throw in what they did not trade for Brian Burns and then ended up trading him anyway, the Carolina Panthers ended up trading 4 first-round picks. I may have even written this wrong. They ended up trading 4 first-round picks and Brian Burns and DJ Moore, 4 second-round picks, and they got Bryce Young a second and a 5th. 4 first-round picks, 4 second-round picks, Brian Burns and DJ Moore for Bryce Young a fifth, and a second. That's what the Carolina Panthers have done in the last 2+ years.
Not good enough.
Oh my eyes would be bulging out of my head, dude. The amount of waste and opportunity cost in there, my eyes would be popping out of my head. We want to talk about how bad the Bryce Young trade deal how bad that trade is, but not getting rid of a guy that wanted out for 2 firsts and a second in Brian Burns, and then you trade him for a second and a fifth anyway, and then you paid him probably $16 million on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
Man, either one of those deals is a team killer. Both of them together. Good Lord, dude.
Yeah, I mean that's a bad trade, especially if Caleb Williams becomes generational out there. But the one that stands out, I mean, we talked about it on Monday. That Deshaun Watson trade, not just for the football stuff, but everything off the field. I mean, you cursed yourself. That was like, then
do it again. That's basically what the Panthers did.
Yeah.
Make that deal and then do it again. Deshaun Watson doesn't want to be there. We watch him play. He's like, just cut me, Mick, cut me. Deshaun Watson does not want to be on the field. He's like, I got my money. I'm tired of the spotlight. I want to take my money and go live on an island somewhere and disappear where nobody can rag on me anymore. I'm done with football. That dude is done with football.
It's also a terrible fit between Stefanski, who wants to be under center, West Coast Kirk Cousins style of offense, versus Deshaun, who wants to be, spread 11 wide, shotgun down the field. It's horrific. And it couldn't happen. I mean, doing that trade and giving him that contract after everything that happened. I don't know if karma's a thing, but my God. Watson got his money and don't care. Yeah, thank God for Cleveland. That could have been us. Yeah, you guys got.
It wouldn't have been that much, though. I mean, it wouldn't have been. You wouldn't have given up that much.
Yeah.
That Cleveland and Cleveland got him because they gave up that much. It would have been, probably 2 first-round picks, and $150 million guaranteed. It would have been a lot, and that's where sometimes not Burns, but sometimes the best deals are the ones you don't make. And Cleveland saved Arthur Blank from himself on that one. I mean, we talked about that. That was an Arthur Blank driven deal. That wasn't Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith. That one was driven by Arthur on that one.
Yeah, got lucky for sure. Sometimes the best deals you make are the ones you don't. But yeah, no. Back to the Panthers game here, Scott. I actually think it's going to be. I don't think Atlanta's going to win by 2 touchdowns because I don't think the defense has shown the ability to clamp enough, and I expect it to be a much higher scoring game. So I'm expecting something like 31 to 23, maybe in that range, 31-20. Atlanta again. I mean, the scrambling quarterbacks have killed them more than the run game, but I mean, you had Rashad White and Bucky Irving, besides the fumble, pretty efficient last week against Atlanta. And I think that the strength of that Carolina team right now, I know they lost their center, but their offensive line has been good, and Chuba Hubbard has been good as well. And the Falcons statistically have been one of the worst rush defenses in football in efficiency metrics and whatnot. And Chuba Hubbard just keeps having solid games for them. So I think that Carolina's going to be able to put up some points based on what I've seen from the Atlanta's defense so far. But I think Atlanta's defense is going to be able to match them and surpass them, of course. So I'm expecting, very solid, throwing it around the yard. Unless there's a weather event, things can change there. We're far enough out that I don't know there. But I'm expecting something like 31-20, which is still like a comfortable game. Maybe it's like, they get a touchdown late as
don't
well.
Look now, but those are 2 scores.
What did I say before?
You said, I don't expect them to win by 2 scores, 31-20.
Oh, I was thinking 2 touchdowns. You said 2 touchdowns.
I know, I'm teasing.
So like 31-20, I think it'll be, your offense is good enough that it'll be comfortable. And it's the Carolina defense is just dreadful. They're one of the bottom 3 in the NFL. They can't stop the run. They can't stop the pass. They do have a little bit of a run game, and Atlanta struggled with the run overall, statistically speaking.
I think part of it is, and again, I trust Atlanta's ability to stop the run if they need to stop the run. If they decide, hey, we need to stop the run, we can. That's kind of how I feel about this team. They've been hurt by scrambling quarterbacks a lot. Andy Dalton doesn't strike me as an overly scrambler. I don't know how much better he is than Baker Mayfield. I would still consider Baker Mayfield to be a little bit better, but I haven't watched a ton of Andy Dalton, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
But for me, it's almost the attitude. You know, if Atlanta gets on this team early, they will pack it up and go home.
Mm-hmm.
And don't let them hang around, because winning is fun. Even when you're on a team you don't like, winning is fun. Put it on them early, and they will pack it in and go home. The Carolina Panthers do not want to play for David Tepper. And the Carolina Panthers fans, they deserve better than this. I've said this. I said this about Washington. I said it about Carolina Panthers. You know, I don't still want to beat them twice a year here in Atlanta, but nobody in this billionaire boys club monopoly system set up in sports, nobody should be held hostage by an owner like this. It's not fair to the Carolina Panthers fans. That dude's getting richer and richer every day.
Yep. And confronting wait staff right at restaurants before the draft and stuff. So yeah, it's good to have rich owners, but not ones who overstep. I will say it's kind of crazy that he did empower the coaching staff to move on from Young after everything they paid to go get him that quickly. But it is maybe a little reactionary. I don't know. I mean, maybe it was the point where
starts, Nick.
It's not enough to say that he's for sure, can't be a starting quarterback. I think the ship has sailed on him being, first overall, small with minimum arm talent, not super athletic. You have to be like Kyler Murray package to be that small and be competent or good at quarterback. But still, it's crazy. The only thing I can think of is that the locker room was absolutely not having it because they can see in practice and everything, like, this guy is impacting my bottom line. We don't even have a chance with him because he's so bad out there. So yeah, crazy, giving all that up to go get him. And feel bad for future smaller quarterbacks because this Bryce Young fall is going to impact them. I mean, there's been some positives there, but with how Russell Wilson fell off and now Bryce Young, unless you have like superstar athleticism / like a arm, you're not going to be going high when you're small.
Shy Boogie comes in. He says, it's time to get some of our young guys in on the D-line. Rook looks solid. And he was put in important situations too. He wasn't just run out there in a rotation. Rook was out there on goal line, which kind of surprised me. And he made a good play, showed good hands, good athleticism. Rook's going to be a good one. The Falcons defensive line is deep. 2 points, and then we're going to go. Actually, probably 3, because I want to say hello to Big Low Country Sports here. Big Low. That's a super chat. So Big Low Country, love you, brother. Thank you for checking in with us. If you're watching this on YouTube, go check out his YouTube page. He's awesome. Give him a follow on Twitter too, if you can. Friend of the show, friend of the Falcons. Just thank you, my friend. Couple things I wanted to hit on real quick. With the depth, 17-game season, you're going to need the depth. We're going to see some of those young guys on the DL. Unfortunately, it's a rough game. People get hurt. I do not expect the defensive line to stay healthy. 6 guys to stay healthy for 17 games. The other point I wanted to make real quick was about one of the good things. Kirk Cousins has stayed healthy long enough that if Michael Penix is needed, I think he's got a little bit better acclimation to the NFL game. So even sitting for 5, 6, 7 weeks, if he's needed, I think he's going to be more ready than being thrown into the mix there. So the Falcons' depth at quarterback is good as well.
Yeah, I mean, just the defensive line in general. You mentioned, you have Grady Jarrett obviously playing well. Onyemata had that awesome sack there in goal to go situation or red zone. He's been good. Graham looks like he's healthy again. I think is he a free agent at the end of this year? I think he's going to play himself.
Saquon, he was in the first draft class, so this would be his 4th year, and he was a 5th round pick, I think. Him and Tyler.
He's going to get an okay contract.
Him and Tyler were in the same class, so if this is Tyler's 4th year, then he'd be a free agent after this season. Can't be Tyler's 4th year, though.
Yeah,
Tyler was the next year. Tyler Algier was the next year. He was 2022. He wasn't in the same class.
Yeah, so this is Graham's last year, and he's playing himself into a solid contract. I mean, we loved him his rookie year, Scott. That was our first year together. There goes the camera. I'm here. But find me time, Scott. Find me time.
You got a face for radio, Nick.
Yeah, unfortunately, probably true. But
I'll take this one from you, and then we're going to get out of here real quick.
Yeah. But we're here. They were always long-term plans. Rook was kind of, a younger player too. And you haven't had injuries mount up on the defensive line. So we'll see. The fact that he's even getting out there despite injuries is a good sign, I think, for the team. But yeah, we'll see. It's frustrating to have a second-round pick not really be a contributor when you have needs elsewhere, but
especially when you use a 3rd-round pick on too.
Yeah. Yep.
He was a 2nd and 3rd-round pick.
Yep. But you're drafting a guy for the entirety of his rookie contract, not his first 5 games of the season.
This was a 2026 draft, without a doubt.
Yeah. Yep.
On that note, I don't know if you saw the red coming in here. We got Michael Ranquillo closing us out here with the hot pink, the fuchsia super chat with $50. Michael brought us in with the sunrise, going to get us out of here with the sunset. Thank you so much, friend of the show. Lots of folks coming in late. Love it. Just in time that we got to get out of here. But we will be back on Monday to break down. It's a late game. It's a 4:00 game in Charlotte. So it's actually a late game. So we won't have to wait too long for the gut reaction on Monday morning the next day. So it's not really gut reaction. It's more like a sleep on it. And then what did you think? But I'm looking forward to it. Falcons need to take care of business. I think they will. The Atlanta sports cynical fan in me, thinks Lucy's going to yank the football away from Charlie Brown like all the time. But 27-10 is what I'm thinking going into this one. Thank you to Michael, to Big Country, to Coach coming in for the super chats. Thank all of y'all. And a thank you again to Lion Coffee. We're glad you're back. We're glad you're back with the Falcons podcast. Check them out at lioncoffee.com. Use the code GoFalcons20 for 20% off. We'll see you next week. Have a great football weekend, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your week. Stay safe out there.
Peace.